Hey everyone, welcome to the Maker's Gonna Learn YouTube channel. My name's Alicia, and today I'm gonna be making something super fun with you all. This is a craft that I've been wanting to make for probably 2 or 3 years now, and we're finally gonna do it, and I am gonna try to make this as easy as I can for you all. If you are not an avid power tool user, I don't want you to turn away from this project. I'm gonna try to bring you all a non-power tool way to recreate these giant DIY letterboards. And we will post a picture for you all so you can kind of see what we're talking about, what we're going to be building. But let's go ahead and jump into the supplies that you're going to need to make the Cricut portion of this video. And then here in just a minute, we're going to take a trip over to Lowe's and we're going to pick up our wood. So the supplies are relatively simple for the Cricut portion of this project. The main thing you're gonna need are these little plexiglass pieces. So these are just super thin plexiglass pieces that we have linked below for you all. And I think they come in packs of 25. Actually, this is a pack of 20 and these are 4x6. So you can buy these in different sizes. The 4x6 was big enough for me. And it wasn't like too small. I wanted my words to be bold on the wall. So I went with a 4x6. And these are all over Amazon. You can find them. There's no specific brand you need. I've got a weeding tool, a brayer, some scissors. I also have a burnishing tool, an ink pen, just to take some notes. This is the Caesar transfer tape, my tried and true favorite transfer tape. And as always, I am using the StarCraft permanent adhesive vinyl in black. Now you don't have to do your letters in black. If you want a pop of color, you can do them in whatever colors that you want. I wanted my look to be super clean and minimal. So I'm gonna stick with black letters. And then I have a light grip. You could use a standard grip mat or whatever mat you prefer to use to cut your permanent adhesive vinyl. Once you're in Design Space, let's go ahead and start with a basic shape. So I'm going to make the shape of the rectangles that we got. So I just pulled in a square. I'm going to unlock it. And these are 4x6 squares, these acrylic shapes that we are working with. And I'm going to go ahead and change the operation to guide. So this is the exact size that we need. I'm going to be using the text boxy, the font boxy. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a letter in here. Now boxy is one of our Maker's Gonna Learn fonts. If you're new here, we are a membership-based crafting community. We offer thousands of cut files and hundreds of fonts, as well as free content for our members every month. We would love to have you as a part of our community, and you can check the description below if you're curious and you want to check out our website. You can just go to makersgonnalearn.com and there's tons of information there. We would love to have you as a part of our community. So I'm going to go ahead and size this up. I've got the boxy font, the Maker's Gonna Learn font right here. And this is how we're going to know how big our letters need to be. Now, I don't know how big I need my wood to be. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and type out what I want for my letterboard. So my letterboard is going to say, these are the days. And then I'm going to ungroup to letters. And this way we can see how much they're going to be spaced out. Now you can duplicate these and drag it this way. That way you can kind of get an idea of how much spacing needs to be in between each letter. Or you can always take your physical pieces of acrylic and lay them out in front of you and then get a measurement based off of that. So I've got my acrylic pieces here, and what I'm going to do is just lay out how many I need for the amount of letters I need. So I've got these THESE, that's one word, and then obviously there's going to be a space in between, and it's going to have A, R, and E. So kind of line it up about where you would actually have it, and then what you can do is take a tape measure and measure how long this is. So this goes to about 33.5 inches. I would like a little, probably about an inch of extra space on each side, maybe even an inch and a half. And so that puts us about 36.5. So even though we're at 36.5 now, with this saying, we're gonna be putting these are the days, and it's gonna be 2 rows. If I wanted to do something like Happy Halloween or Merry Christmas, those are gonna be a lot more letters. So what you can do is kind of think about what you plan on using this letterboard for and how big the biggest word you could potentially be using would be. So for me, I'm going to lay out my acrylic pieces to the amount of letters that Christmas would have, and that's going to be my maximum amount, if that makes sense. So let's go ahead and lay our acrylic pieces out for the word Christmas. And that way, whenever Christmas time comes, my letterboard will be big enough for me to put Merry Christmas, and I won't have to shorten it or anything like that. So I've got CHRISTMAS. And so before we were only going to be making it like 37 inches, but now this is about 36.5 on its own, and I want to give an inch and a half of leeway on each side. So this would be like 39.5, but I'm just going to go ahead and round it up to 40. So I'm going to write on my sticky note, I'm just going to write that we need a 40-inch piece of pine. And actually, you're going to need 40-inch pieces in however many rows you want. So I'm only going to do 2 rows. If you wanted to do 3 or 4, you totally could. I just need to get 2 long pieces of that good pine wood. So back in Design Space, I'm going to go ahead and just type out the rest of what I'm going to be putting on my sign. And I am actually going to just duplicate one of these letters because I know that that letter is the size that I need. So I'm going to put these are the days. And you can ungroup these to lines. I'm probably going to have mine laid out like this. It'll say these are the days. And we've already spaced these out, but if you want to be careful and you want to make sure that your letters are going to fit, you can ungroup to letters and do with this bottom row the same thing you did right here, and then you can click and drag to see how wide it is. So you can see right here, this is 20.875 inches, and then you can just do the same situation here with all the other letters, if that makes sense. So once you have all of the letters you want, what we're going to do is go ahead and send this through our Cricut. Now, the red boxes right here that the operation is set to guide, those will not cut. So it's just going to cut our letters, and we're using plain black vinyl, permanent adhesive vinyl. So nothing crazy. I'm just going to go ahead and select Make It. And it's coming in all jumbled. That's okay because we're not putting it on. We're doing each individual letter on its own. And then I'm going to select Continue. And we're using the Maker 3 today. And I'm going to use premium vinyl matte. And then I'm just going to put more pressure just because I like to do that. And we're using a regular fine point blade, and we can go ahead and load our mat. Okay. So while that's cutting, let's go ahead and take off the front piece of film from these. So there's a piece of film on the front and the back of these small acrylic pieces. And I'm just using a weeding tool to kind of grab that corner. And then we will peel it off. And we're going to keep them shiny side up. There's still a piece of film on the back of these. I just don't want to take it off yet because I don't want to get fingerprints on it. So I'm just going to pull off all of the fronts of these and cut out all of the letters that we need. So now that our letters are cut, I'm just going to weed all of these out, just like so. Okay, so once you have your letters weeded, we're going to add our transfer tape on top of the letters, and then I'm going to individually cut them out. That way we can apply them individually to each acrylic piece. I'm also just going to do a few letters at a time, and I can recycle that transfer tape just to save on some transfer tape. So we're basically going to be creating this. So I've got my acrylic pieces right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and attach them individually. You want to make sure whenever you apply this vinyl to the piece that you're not putting it too close to the bottom. You want to make sure that you are putting it a little bit closer to the top, because there may be a lip on the wood so that these pieces don't fall off. And so we really don't want it to be too close to the bottom. And then I'm just going to take a burnishing tool, burnish that down, remove the transfer tape, and I'm going to reapply this transfer tape to another letter. And then we're going to do this for all of them. If you find that you're getting little bubbles, you can take your weeding tool or like a little sewing pin, and you can just poke a little hole in it and then flatten it down. Okay, so we got all of our letters done that we're going to do for today. The next thing we need to do, make sure that we've written down our measurements on a sticky note, and we're going to go ahead and head on over to Lowe's and get the wood that we need to complete our project. So we made it back from Lowe's. I want to go over everything that we got while we were there. We had a couple things on hand already, like in the studio, so I didn't have to grab everything. But these are like the main items that you're going to need to complete this project. So we obviously are going to need premium pine wood. We get the premium pine wood because the edges are crisper. It looks much cleaner than most of the other woods, and it's not super expensive. We got 2 pieces of the 6-foot long 1x2s, and we had them cut down at Lowe's to our measurement. So 2 of these are 40 inches. So I've got these 2 40-inch pieces right here. And then we have these left over. If you wanted to make a smaller one somewhere else, you could. I'm just going to set these to the side because we only need the first 2. And then we got these little square dowel rods. My idea, and tell me all what you all think about this. I was gonna do, so like originally you'll typically see an inset along this wood, but to avoid using power tools just for this project, I thought it would be nice to have a little ledge here. Well, the problem is that the dowel is 36 inches and the wood is 40 inches. So we're gonna have a couple inches on the side. So whenever it's on the wall, it'll be like this. And you're gonna be able to see that there's a couple inches on each side of the dowel. I feel like it looks intentional, so I'm gonna kind of stick with it, and we're just gonna make it work. I think it's gonna be cute still. It's not gonna look like the normal ones, but it's still gonna be really cute. What you could do if you don't like how that looks is you can take your dowel rod. So this one, it will go 36 inches across, and then you could take another one and you could have them cut this at Lowe's if you wanted to, or you can cut it, you know, in your own garage. And you can add a piece there, and you could nail this in or wood glue it on and then fill it with wood filler. But whenever you go to stain, it's just not going to be super cohesive with the stain. So you would have to paint it. In my instance, I really want to stain these. So I'm going to stick with having this sort of in the middle and having a couple inches on the edge, because it's still going to be able to hold my letters and it's still going to look really nice when I go to stain it. We grabbed some 220 grit sandpaper. The higher the number, the smaller and finer the grit. So this is a very fine grit. This is going to give us a nice smooth finish. And we're going to sand before we stain after everything's attached. Got some of that. I got these because I'm going to hang greenery around this whenever we get it on the wall. So I went ahead and grabbed some of those. These are to actually attach it to the wall. So this is the 16-pound Command strips, and they're Velcro. So you put a piece on the wood and then a piece on the wall, and it just virtually Velcros to the wall. So it's pretty cool. And then I got some wood filler just in case we decided to go the other route. But we may not even end up needing to use this. A couple other things that I have on hand are these tiny baby wood clamps. I'm going to be using these to secure the dowels to the piece of wood. And then I've got some painter's tape. And then you're going to need some type of wood glue. Gorilla Wood Glue works, Elmer's wood glue, whatever works, as long as it says wood glue on it. And then we're going to be using my favorite color of stain, which is Early American. The Minwax brand is my favorite. This is just an oil-based wood stain, and it's my favorite color. And then I've got some latex gloves and some random cloth for staining. So I'm going to start by sanding everything before we start. A lot of times when you buy wood, it'll have stickers on it, and then when you go to stain, the stain will not adhere to the actual wood. So I'm just making sure there's no stickers on the edges. And I took a sticker off of this dowel rod, and I'm just going to rip this sandpaper because I don't need the entire piece, and it's easier to handle when you do it this way. And we're just going to start sanding this really good. And then I'm going to sand these two pieces as well. Make sure whenever you're sanding, you're getting these edges really good, because whenever they cut the wood, it can sometimes be a little bit raw and there'll be pieces sticking up. So make sure you're sanding that really good so it gives it a nice finished look. Okay, that one looks good. And then we're going to do one more dowel and then the other piece. So once you have all of that sanded, make sure and clean up any dust in your area. That way when we go to stain, it's not covered in dust. And you may want to take like a piece of your cloth and wipe off your wood pieces. That way you don't have any like residual sawdust on it. And this will just make, for whenever we go to stain, it'll make your stain look a lot better. So I'm just going to take this. You could dampen it if you wanted to, or you can just take a dry cloth and kind of wipe it off. And then we will wipe our surface off and go to the next step. So for our next step, we are going to attach our dowels to the front of our shelf. And I've just got some wood glue here. Spigot part of it was not working, so I'm just going to put some out onto a paper towel, and we're just going to use a paintbrush to brush it onto the back of our dowels. And then I have our little clamps right here that I'm going to use to secure it into place. So I've just got a paintbrush. We're going to do one at a time. So I'm going to take a little bit of this, and we're just brushing on one side of this dowel rod. This is just going to be a good, even, thin coat. Okay, so I've got the glue right here. I'm gonna put that facing down on our shelf piece. And if you want to, you can make sure and measure from end to end to make sure you've got the same distance on each side, which we've got 1.5 inches over here and 2 inches over here. So I'm just gonna slide it a little bit over. So we're about 1 3/4 on this side and the same here. So that's pretty good. So now I'm just gonna take these little clamps, I'm gonna push that down. This will allow you to open and close them. And I'm going to attach them to each end of where the dowel rod meets the shelf. You just want to make sure you're lining it up. Okay, there's one. And I'll give you all a close-up shot of what it looks like as soon as I get them both on. Okay, so if you have any excess glue after you put your clamps on, just kind of wipe it off. If there's still any that's dried a little bit, we can go back in and we will sand it off before we stain. But you can kind of see how I've got these clamped in here. I've got them lined up with the edge of the shelf. That way we have a perfectly straight edge. Okay, so once your wood glue has dried, you can go ahead and remove your little clamps. And this should probably take 20 to 30 minutes. My little wood dowels were a little bit bowed, so I wanted to make sure that it was pretty dry before we moved on. And then I'm just gonna repeat the same process for the other shelf. And actually, so before I go in to stain my shelves, I want to make sure that whenever I stain my woods, they're going to look alike. The dowel rods that I got are made of poplar, and then the wood pieces that I got for the shelf, these pieces are made of pine. So a lot of times whenever you stain different types of wood, obviously it's going to pull a different color because they have different densities and things like that. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put my gloves on and I'm going to stain one of the edges of these extra dowels that I have, as well as the shelf piece. If I'm not happy with it, like if I feel like it's super different, I may end up just painting these white. I really would like to stain them though. So let's open this up and see what happens whenever we stain them both. So I'm using the Early American. This is the stain that I want to use. Okay, so I'm just gonna take some of this t-shirt and I'm gonna stain this edge. It's always good to test your stains on your wood anyways that you're using to make sure that it absorbs and looks the correct color that you'd like. And actually, those are not looking super different to me. Let's hold them up. I mean, they're obviously not cured or anything. You can tell a slight difference, but in my opinion, I don't feel like you can tell difference enough for me to want to paint it. I would still rather stain it. I still think it's going to look really cute. So we will go ahead and stain these, and I think they're going to be really cute. Where I glued them, I do want to make sure that it didn't get any glue residue on the board, so I am going to stain them after they're completely dry from the gluing process, and then we will go in and stain them completely. So I made sure to sand this super well because if you have any residual glue left on your wood, the stain will not stain. So it will not stain over the glue. It just totally won't stain it at all. So I made sure to sand it really well. And now we're gonna go in with the stain and stain the entire shelf. So whenever you all get it stained, you may have some small, hard to reach places right here. So I'm just gonna take a paintbrush and kind of go in these crevices to make sure it's gonna be stained really well. Obviously, you're probably not gonna see this from where you're at, but I think it's good just to go and do the whole thing correctly. That way, it's a nice solid piece of decor and it's gonna last really long and be very high quality. Okay, so once you've stained everything, make sure to let it sit for a couple minutes, and then I'm just gonna take a paper towel and kind of wipe off any excess stain. That way we don't have any like residual oil left over from the stain. Just wiping this down really good. And I'm gonna let these cure at least overnight, and then we will install them in the wall, and I'm gonna give you all some tips on how to install them properly with the command strips. Now you could put these, you could nail them into the wall really if you wanted to, but we're gonna actually be using command strips. So it's gonna be, this is a good like renter friendly option or way to make something cute in a space where you don't necessarily wanna put holes in the wall. So I'm just gonna dry these off and let them sit, and then we will be installing them here in the next couple of days. We're gonna be using 16-pound command strips to hang it. And then what I've done is placed a piece of tape the length of the wood sign and then used a level to make sure it's flat. And then we're just lining up the wood piece here to make sure everything looks perfectly level. Then you'll just attach the command strips to the back of the pieces of wood, and then you can apply some greenery around it using command hooks, and then you are done.